Mr. Sternfels, to be clear, is your position that McKinsey, is your position that McKinsey working for both the FDA and opioid manufacturers at the same time did not create a conflict of interest? Is that your position?
That is my position, to be clear.
Okay, I appreciate your clarity. Let's look at what McKinsey employees told pharmaceutical companies. McKinsey consultants bragged to opioid maker Purdue Pharma that their FDA work, quote, improved Purdue's ability to influence the regulatory environment. That's a McKinsey statement. Quote, McKinsey's FDA work will improve Purdue's ability to influence the regulatory environment. McKinsey worked for Purdue at the same time it was working for the FDA. Mr. Sternfels, should McKinsey have disclosed to the FDA that it was helping opioid manufacturers influence drug safety regulations?
I'll start with your direct question, which is we don't view our work at the FDA at the same time of working with pharmaceutical companies, including opioids, as a conflict because the topics were different.
Okay, I know you say that you worked on, I read your testimony and all of the information here, you worked on broad systemic issues, is your claim. But are you suggesting that working on things like the design, an organizational structure, staffing, resource allocation, building the bones of a drug safety system doesn't affect how those regulations actually get enforced against an entity like Purdue? I mean, if your work for FDA was so important, didn't it have some influence on what they actually did in the world with regard to drug manufacturers?
No, it didn't, Congresswoman. It may be.
So you charged the government to not do important work?
Didn't say that the work wasn't important. I said that it didn't actually influence their decision with respect to pharmaceutical companies or opioids in particular. It may be worth for the committee understanding in a bit more detail what actually we did with the FDA. This is the kind of work that McKinsey and Company performed for the FDA. It was implementing technology solutions so that we could have repeatable process. It was taking paper out of processes that had too much paper. It was putting in visibility and performance management as to where people were allocated so that FDA employees could actually be more productive to help save taxpayer money. These are the kind of aspects. We didn't design the processes. We didn't actually set policy. We made some of these core processes more efficient and effective to make the FDA more efficient and effective.
Well, Mr. Sternfels, shouldn't the FDA have been allowed to make its own decision about whether or not your company's work for Purdue did or did not create a conflict? Why should you and your company be the decision maker here?
We aren't.
Who made you conflict of interest czar for the United States government?
We're not the conflict of interest czar.
Okay, so let me ask you, did you disclose to the FDA your McKinsey's work at the same time? Did you disclose to the FDA that McKinsey was working at the same time it was working for the FDA that it was working for Purdue? Did you disclose that to the FDA?
We made clear in multiple instances that the individuals involved had experience in both pharmaceuticals and opioids.
Reclaiming my time, Mr. Sternfels, they didn't have experience. They were the identical humans working for both at the same time. Did you tell the FDA, did you make these disclosures and then allow the government to decide if there was a conflict of interest?
When we assessed the work request from the FDA, we brought professionals, our legal team, our dedicated government team, to understand first, is there a conflict of interest? We verified that the work was different.
Reclaiming my time, Mr. Sternfels, that is you putting yourself as the czar of conflicts. Look, your scheme worked really well for McKinsey. McKinsey got contracts, Purdue got rich, and America got addicted. Since 2008, McKinsey earned $140 million in contracts from the FDA, and you did not ever disclose your work for Purdue. You did not disclose your conflicts of interest. So my question for you is, since you didn't disclose the conflicts of interest, will you return the $140 million to the FDA?
I'll point you to the FDA statement as recently as yesterday, where they highlight that our work was not related to opioids or the pharmaceutical industry whatsoever.
The gentlelady's time has expired. I now recognize the gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. Comer. He's recognized for 5